Hi, this is Filiberto Amati, and I'm here today for another session on the future of tech. We're going to be talking about my preferred sport today. Actually, sport, of course, not as a practitioner, but as a viewer. And Elisabetta Borghi with me today is going to introduce our esteemed guest.
Hi, nice to meet you. And we introduce you to Aldo Comi, who is the CEO and founder of Soccerment.
Hi, good morning, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome, Aldo. Thank you very much. So, before we talk about Soccerment, Aldo, who are you? Where are you coming from? What kind of experiences, and why soccer and why analytics?
Of course. So, before founding Soccerment, I've been an equity analyst for almost 15 years. So I was looking at data, but not of footballers. I was looking at financial accounts of companies listed on the stock exchange, and I was doing financial analysis on them. So I was looking at data and creating models to evaluate companies. That is what I've been doing for 15 years, and then suddenly I decided to go back to my first love, which was football, and start analyzing data, but about football players and teams. And like in 2019, I left the investment banking industry to focus entirely on Soccerment.
It sounds like a great opportunity, because for many decades the world of football has been driven by high investment without specific ROI on them. So the idea of applying systems of data analytics is probably the right choice to start a business.
Yeah, well, in football, decisions have been like for 100 years have been made entirely through gut feelings, and that I found was strange. And so I started thinking about applying data to football, like at the beginning of 2010s. After reading Moneyball, a book, a famous book, which then also became a movie, and it was about applying data and analytics to baseball. And I thought, okay, so why it has not yet come to football? And I started to make myself these questions, and I was trying to answer them. And so the first answer was it has to do with cultural differences between Europe, especially Southern Europe, and the United States. Now, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to data analytics and things like that. But I was very much convinced that was the main explanation. But then, after studying a bit of football analytics, I came to the conclusion that data analytics, sport analytics, started with baseball and other American sports, team sports, bigger team sports, because it was easier for those sports to be analyzed with data. Because and it was obviously more difficult to do that in football. And why is that? That has to do with of how football works, and the fact that it is way more fluid than most of the team sports in the US, and also because it is a low-scoring game. So, being a low-scoring game, you have a lot of random events, which has had a great influence of on the results. And so you need to look beyond the classical stats. You need to go a bit deeper. And so, yeah, it is more difficult. And so that is why it has taken more time for analytics to be applied to football. But now the football world has started to invest in terms of human capital, in terms of technology, and the first results are coming, and you start seeing way more clubs starting to apply data analytics to football. So things are going to the right direction for us, obviously, because we are here to help football clubs to become eventually data-driven organizations, right?
Cool. Let's and you mentioned that quickly, but let's talk about Soccerment, because from the external point of view, there is a consumer electronic part, which is the sensors, how do you collect the data, and there is a analytics part, which of course where the juice and the gold is, no? But it's also the one which requires a bit more of cultural evangelization, because you need to have a guy in the team staff who understands what he's talking about, and he can convert those data into insights for the main trainer, for the goalie trainer, for the players, and so on and so forth. So what is the most important part of the business, or where do you start? You start with having a better sensor, or do you really just need better analytics, or you need better support from a development point of view?
Okay, first step back. Why was Soccerment born? And comes to the vision. We come to the vision of Soccerment, of the company. So the vision is to make sports more meritocratic and inclusive, thanks to the objectivity of data. And I said sports and not football, but obviously we started with football because it is the sport that we love, obviously, but also because it is the sport, the team sports, and I was saying that earlier, that has lagged behind the most when it comes to data and innovation. So when I started to think about founding Soccerment, what I did was looking at the football pyramid and trying to understand what were the main problems regarding data. And I saw, and I still see, unfortunately, two major problems. One has to do with the scarcity of data, but the other one, which is important as well, is the complexity of doing in-depth data analysis. So you need data, but you also need know-how, or anyway tools to make sense of the data you have at your disposal. Now, if you look at the football pyramid right now, you see there is, the very top, which is a very small portion of the football world in terms of number of football players, not in terms of revenues, obviously. But in terms of number of football players, you have this very tiny top, where you have a lot of data right now, because you have companies such as Scout, Opta, and others, StatsBomb, that provide data to football clubs, high quality data about technical on-ball events, tracking data, and stuff like that. And also you have technology like the GPS vest that you see underneath the football players' jerseys. You have a lot of data, but still in the top club, most of the top clubs still do not have the internal know-how to make sense of the data they have. So they don't have enough resources internally to extract all the possible intelligence from the data. So it's like, they have a gold mine behind their feet, but they're not digging. Like sometimes they don't even know that they have it.
Yeah, and if I may, that's actually a common problem beyond soccer, where you have a lot of retail and consumer companies which have adopted big data. The problem is that the ones who understand the data don't have neither the political nor the probably emotional intelligence to be able to sell insights internally. So the head keeps doing whatever, they have the data, but they don't actually use it as such in that sense. And I assume that in soccer, where basically, most of the trainers come from a soccer background, so they understand the game and they are experts. There is also a cultural change to be able to say, there is a guy who explains to you, you know what, it's not really true what you think. And this is the proof.
Yeah, you have like a double cultural problem, I guess, in football, because things have been done like the same for, as I was saying earlier, 100 years. So it is difficult to break through from this heritage and make them understand that things might be different from what they have always seen. So you have in the top of the football pyramid, you have data, but often you lack the know-how. Then underneath, data start becoming really scarce. Like you have pro clubs which have the GPS vest and like very often we don't have technical on-ball events data. Then in semi-pro, non-pro, and especially youth football, you don't have data at all, right? And that's a problem because I mean, like if we had data, especially for youth football, you would have an objective mechanism to improve the players and then like to start a more meritocratic scouting process. And so we decided to tackle these dual problems with an integrated holistic approach, which is doing both, like developing both innovative systems that can track data, that can gather data, and at the same time, tools that are able to extract a lot of intelligence from the data you have. So what we do is, on the one hand, we are starting selling this product, which is our smart wearable, these smart shin guards, which are able to track both the athletic and the technical performance of footballers. We went with wearable devices because right now it is the most scalable solution. And our goal is to go down to the very bottom of the football pyramid. So we start from the top, but we want to go down to the very bottom, and that is why we need a very scalable solution. And as I said, right now wearables are probably still the best option. And then, like linked to the shin guards, but also connected to any source of data you have, we have developed innovative analytics tools. And they are innovative because they try to go beyond the analysis of the classic statistics which might work in other team sports like baseball, basketball, and so on, but they don't work that well in football because of the characteristics of football I mentioned earlier. So being a low scoring game with a lot of variables and being very fluid. You need to analyze the reality of the performances differently, in my view. I think it is very important to move from normal metrics to advanced metrics. And when I say advanced metrics, I mean metrics like expected goals, expected assists, expected threats, and so on and so forth. Like
so predictive kind of.
Well, no, they're not really predictive per se. They are still on the descriptive side, but what they do is they basically transform the reality from binary, let's say goal, non-goal, into a probabilistic one, a quantistic one.
Okay.
By doing that, you have a better grasp of the real reality, so of the underlying performance. And thanks to that, you can move on to predictive analytics. I mean, like if we...
Let me ask you then, let me interrupt you for a second, because my experience moving from a binary to, let's call it fuzzy, you know, kind of logic, there is always a key cultural issue and barrier. So we're going back to that. How do you address that?
It is difficult. It is difficult. I mean, like we are seeing very advanced metrics start being accepted by the public, by the media. But I mean, there is still a long way to go. But I'm positive. I mean, we have seen, for example, stuff like expected goals being used by video games as of late. Like the most recent FIFA video game, like the most recent edition display expected goals. So like at the end of a match you play with FIFA, you see a lot of statistics like shots, possession, stuff like that. But then you also see expected goals. And the same goes, like now it has been for a couple of years at least, with another popular football video game, which is Football Manager, you know, where you can evaluate and players on the basis of advanced metrics like expected goals. So the public has started to adopt this different view of football stats, and that makes me really positive about the future. I think football analytics has just started, really. What we have seen in the last 5 years, and we have seen a lot, you know, because the acceleration of the adoption has been exponential after all. But what we have, because it is exponential, what we have seen in the last 5 years is nothing compared to what we will be seeing in the next 5.
But you need to start from a point to grow, and the evolution of the possible systems and metrics will evolve accordingly, for sure.
Then one other important aspect of the very recent acceleration, well, we have 2 aspects. One was, fortunately, the pandemic, but the pandemic forced football clubs to review their business models, and they forced them to try to basically maintain or improve their performance levels with lower budgets. And analytics basically can help a lot, no, on that front. And the other thing is we have started to see the first case studies positive case studies of football clubs which have embraced data analytics, which have invested a lot on data analytics, and they've started to have very interesting results. And we have clubs like AZ Alkmaar, which in the Netherlands is able to compete with much bigger clubs, having like 1/4 of their budget. You have clubs like, similar clubs like Midland, like Brentford. Brentford went to the Premier League, and this season they played well. They achieved. They're remaining in the Premier League, despite having a much lower budget compared to many other clubs in England, thanks to the use of data analytics. You have Manchester City, which is investing a lot on recruiting astrophysicists for starting to put together these models, machine learning models, to better understand their players and their performances. And then you have Liverpool. Liverpool has a team of data scientists, which, if you look at the names and their curriculum vitae, it seems a team which could work for NASA, right? And in the past 5 years, we have seen how many achievements have been made by Liverpool in England and in European football. Now, apart from the recent finals, which have been lost, but Liverpool consistently get there, and they do so because they are able to find the right players for the club's philosophy, and for the tactical system, the playing style of coach Jurgen Klopp. And we do that by looking at data and having models allowing them to be better at recruiting players, to scout for players and recruit players. And they're doing an amazing job on that front, and the results are now obvious to everybody. So, like clubs which have not yet embraced the data analytics start to think, all right, maybe if I do the same and start investing on some data scientists, which cost like 1/10 of that football player who doesn't even play, then I think we have a lot of these cases, and a lot of these clubs will change their mind in the next few years. They will start recruiting data scientists, and they will need data intelligence, and they will need more data for their entire club.
I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, this vision for inclusivity, because I think that's very interesting. So let's forget about the pros. Now let's go towards the bottom of the pyramid. Do you think that data and analytics at youth level at the very beginning can help kids being more prepared, better prepared, and more successful earlier in pursuing a soccer career? Or where is the role? What is your vision in terms of the role that you can play at the bottom of the pyramid?
Well, your question points to why a kid should have these shingles, for example. And I see 3 main reasons for it. The first one is the possibility to improve better and faster. So you do your training sessions, you do your matches, You have data about those sessions and our analysis. No? And thanks to that, you can see where you do better than the average for your role and your age, and worse than the average if you use both feet or you just use your strong one. If you run as much as you should, or you run less, your pace and the power of your shot, stuff like that. By having a feedback, an objective one, which is not the feedback you normally receive from your parents or from your coach, in my view, you do this well and that other not so well. So I mean, in those cases are opinions, and when you receive as a feedback an opinion, you're like, yeah, okay, but maybe you're wrong. But then when you have an objective feedback, everything changes. If I go running and I don't measure myself, I can go back home and think, yeah, maybe in my view I ran well. Then if I measure myself while running, I see how much I've done, and how much I did compared to like previous week, and so on and so forth. The same goes with a device which gives you data about football performance. You have a feedback, and you can take that as the starting point of a process which drives you to improve. Okay. Secondly, and I think this is very important, especially with the youngest generations, the engagement then can derive from having data about your performances. So you don't not only look at your data and compare your data with the previous self, with your previous self. You can compare data with your teammates, and who take the highest amount of shots in a game, who runs faster, who runs more, and stuff like that. And I think that is very important to have an engagement opportunity to keep kids interested in what they are doing. The new generations have a lot of inputs, and normally, very often, those inputs are basically staying home in front of a display, and I think it would be better if I have some inputs forcing them to go out and play. And then there is the third reason, which is the main selling point, probably, and is the visibility that a device like that can give you in front of, for example, the scouts, the international scouts. You have, if you give us your consent, then your data can be seen by international football scouts, and if we apply the filters, and those filters in our database, in our platform, point to your name, then you might be of interest to the scouts of Real Madrid. And the point of what we do is actually to link the talents, or anyway the kids who want to become a professional footballer, to the top clubs, which are always looking for the next big football star.
And in fact, I was going to say that, and that's what I thought when I heard about your business first, is that this potentially is going to completely disrupt the scouting process, because right now it's really based on having local eyes, so friends of friends, and then come and see, this is great, you should see, and then taking videos and sharing and so on and so forth. So it's very unstructured, it's very guts based, and you probably have a chance if the scout is there, and and depending on the condition of the day, you might miss the chance because you had a very bad day, whereas you are a very good player, and still you have one audition, so to speak. So I think it's a great way to for talent to do that. Betty?
From the user experience point of view and from product development, how is structured your offer? Do you offer an app to the club? Do you have a version just for the player? Is it something that you can, I don't know, check on your iPhone smartwatch? Is it a dashboard to be checked online? How does it work?
So yeah, we have a dual approach. We have like a B2B offering and a B2C one. Now, in the B2B offering, we use a platform as a service model. So with a monthly fee, you have your pairs of smart shingers, and you have all the player apps, the staff apps, like stuff for the technical, the app for the technical stuff, and for all the other stakeholders in the club, and you have our support, obviously. And then we have the B2C approach, which is the typical, usual transactional approach. So you buy the shingers, and you have your app. You have your app. So after the performance, you basically download either via Bluetooth or via cable your data, and the data is automatically uploaded in our systems, and you can view it on your mobile app or on the web app we have. Yeah, just like that, like normal wearables.
So let's step back. I'm gonna play in the investor devil's advocate here, because of course the investors always want to see beyond what it is today. So you now have, let's say, a business about analytics for better performance. Okay, you could potentially still relate it to soccer. Let's say, disrupt the scouting processes we mentioned, and become more inclusive, and so on and so forth. What else could come, could be a growth play for Soccerment in the future? Because soccer is about entertainment. It's becoming more and more an entertainment. So are you going to be providing data for the entertainment? Are you already? Are you going to monetize that? Or is that just a showcase for brand building? There is also the, let's say, healthcare part. Can your data be used in preventing injuries and optimizing, let's say, the physical performance and so on and so forth? So there are different, there is the medicine of the sport, there is the pure entertainment part. Where would you bet, and what is your vision?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I'll start with the first suggestion you made. So entertainment. I think there is a scope for great improvement in the entertainment part of the football industry to provide a better content, a better storytelling using data. Media have very recently started to do that, but I mean, they are really only just starting. We're only scratching at the surface on that front. There is a lot that can be done and should be done, in my view. And obviously, we can be there to help at make media, like traditional media, understand what kind of data you need to look at and how to display it, because that is another important thing. You don't need to transfer complexity. The final user doesn't need complexity. You need something which is user-friendly, something intuitive. And that is also why in our, if you go on our public analytics platform, which is at analytics.soccerment.com, you see that we use a lot of data visualization. Apart from all the advanced metrics and the performance indicators, we use a lot of data visualization because people need to immediately understand the performance of footballers, to be able to compare them, footballers or a football team, and for it to be successful and effective, it needs to be simple as possible. Also, because in football, one of the most scarce resources, time, and I think it needs to be.
Yeah, they give you a split second, and that's it. Otherwise, they move on. They are not going to follow it at all. So I agree with you.
Exactly, and then when it comes to injury prevention and rehabilitation, I think the device can be of great help. This kind of device can optimize, especially like we have started to work on the injury prevention capabilities of our system. Why? Because like as of now, it is one of the few, if not the only solution which is able to track technical events and physical events at the same time, and that is very important for injury prevention opportunities, because you have like I'll give you an example. During the week, you have very different training sessions, and most of the time teams have at least one session which is entirely dedicated to technical stuff. Like often I remember, but I'm still seeing nowadays. I was saying I remember from my old times when I was playing football, but I still see it happening. Like on Thursday afternoon session, you have like a session fully dedicated to shots, corners, free kicks, penalties, stuff like that. So you have the technical load of those sessions is very, very high, while the athletic load is not. No. And if you have only your GPS vest, you only are able to identify the athletic load. So you don't have data about the technical load. And if you just look at the athletic load, you see that the session was not particularly intense. Now, on Sunday, you play a game. After a few minutes, you start having a pain in your groin, and your performance analyst, by looking at the data of the previous week, if he just has the data about your athletic load, doesn't have the possibility to correlate what happened to your injury and what you did during the previous week. Instead, if you had this, and you could spot it that on Thursday you have a very high technical load, and probably the intensity of the session was too high, and next time you should revisit how to program your training sessions. And to do that, you need data, and having data, you need to have solutions able to provide that kind of data. And our solution, I think, can solve that problem.
This is something.
Sorry, but just to complete, I love the idea, the fact that you're going to be working then on both, the technical stuff, the medical stuff in the team, but as well as the marketing and business development stuff with the data and how to integrate those data into the content that basically they produce as a team. Betty?
I was thinking that it is also useful when you change a coach, for instance, to check maybe a different model of training to compare past data with the current data. I understand what is going wrong or what is improving, or I don't know, if you change someone in the team, what were the pros and cons of this change. So there are multiple uses behind this kind of tracking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I'll give you another example. We did a pilot with the under 19 team of a Serie A club, a top club. And so we went there and spent a few weeks with training sessions, and we gathered data with many players on the training sessions. And in both training sessions, there were matches played by inside the team, inside the same team. And we saw where, for example, a midfielder who's left-footed during those matches was using indifferently his left foot and his right foot, like maybe 60% the left foot and 40% the right foot, but very balanced. But then it comes the friendly match against the first team, like super top players. And what happens is where data showed that basically, playing against the first team, so playing against much stronger players, he basically went into his comfort zone and started using only his left foot. And I think there is, for the technical stuff, there could be a very useful indication on where to focus when it comes to the technical trainings ahead. Where the player needs to improve on his right foot, and in order to have then when it comes the important match, he has more options and does not only use his strong foot. But it's just an example, but it is an example of how useful this kind of data can be.
And it's a great example because actually it's also psychological, trigger to do some psychological work, because if he needs to be a better player, he needs to get out of his comfort zone, or when he feels the pressure, he's not progressing, he's regressing to the core. And that's, you have basically the technical data that can help you focusing on what he needs psychologically to become a better player.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. On the health side, because if you force too much a knee or a foot, then you can have an injury. And if you have the vision, you can prevent an injury.
Absolutely. So there is, psychological, technical, and injuries healthcare dimension as well. Cool. Aldo, thank you very much. Betty, thank you very much. It was great. And, we look forward to speaking to you in the future. We wish you all the best in developing Soccerment.
Thank you for your time.
My
Thank
pleasure.
You, excellent. Thank you.